It's April 2009 and this is the re-release of Photo Walkthrough episode number 4, tutorial 1, chapter 4. This is a re-encoding of the original tutorial 1 chapter files. I managed to dig out the old files and re-encode them using our new encoding format, which looks much nicer than those original files and allows you to download and keep them. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello again, folks. This time I'm going to work on the ground portion of the image. Now, I should just mention, what I'm doing here is working through the way I particularly edited this image. I'm not suggesting that this is the correct way to process black and white files in general, or that this is an ideal way of doing it or anything. I'm merely going through the steps that I took in processing this particular image. So, I'm not sure everything I'm doing here is the optimal way of doing it. But the next step that I took when I edited this image myself was to work on the ground portion, so the sand and the boats in the foreground, and perhaps the bottom of the pier. In this portion I won't be looking at the sky, and you'll find at the end of this section, the sky might look possibly even worse. The next video will cover the sky portion of the image. So, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to drag the layers palette in, and I'm actually going to create a layers group, which is this icon just here. It looks like a little folder icon. That's going to make a group layer, which I'm going to rename to ground. And then inside that layer, I'm going to create two curves layers. So the menu's dropping off the bottom of the screen. You'll just have to believe me. I'm creating a curves layer, which you can see here, and I'm just going to press OK, and I'm going to make another curves layer, and I'm going to press OK. Now, the first of those curves layers is going to be my lightening layer, and the second layer is going to be my contrast layer. And the lightening layer is just like we did before. I'm going to set the mode to screen, and for the contrast layer I'm going to use overlay. Now that's made that image very bright, very blown out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the lightning layer down to about 35%, something like that. And I'm going to drag the contrast down because this is looking still a bit too high contrast. We drag this palette over here so we can see the bit that we're interested in. The contrast layer I'm going to drag down to, I don't know, 60ish, something like that, 65%. That looks a bit better. Right, so now these two layers that I created within the ground layer group, they're all affected. If I turn off the ground group, everything is inside the group is hidden as well. So that's the image as we had it before, and if I turn the ground group back on, if you watch the image, you can see that that's adding quite a lot of brightness, quite a lot of contrast, and the sky up here is now pretty well blown out. So I want this ground group only to apply to the ground portion of the image. Now you see we've got, because these adjustment layers are always created with a layer mask by default, I actually don't want the layer mask on these adjustment layers, so I'm going to drag the layer mask. Let me just move this up so you can see the trash can. I'm going to drag the layer mask to the trash can, and that's going to say, do I want to delete the layer mask? Yes. I'm going to do the same with the lightning layer. And also that channel mixer layer that I did on the last video. I don't need the layer mask on that. This is all just going to make our file sizes a little bit smaller. And I'm going to add a layer mask to the ground group. You can put a mask on a group and it will apply to everything in that group. So I've made a layer mask there, and I'm going to leave it as white, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint black over the sky portion so that this layer group doesn't apply to the sky. So I'll drag that out of the way, I'll kick the cat off the desk, and grab my Wacom tablet. I'm going to grab my brush with the B key, increase the size with the square bracket key, select black as my foreground colour, wait for my PC to catch up, and start painting black on the sky. And you can see it's just painting the detail back in on the sky. I'm gonna, where I like the slightly brighter, slightly higher contrast, I'm going to leave it on. So this isn't going to be a perfect sky ground mask. What I'm trying to do is keep the transition from the sky portion of the image to the ground portion of the image fairly smooth. Now, over here it's perhaps okay, certainly around the top of the pier it's okay. I'm seeing a little bit of haloing here, so I'm going to zoom in. It's difficult working on this small window. Normally I would work with a full screen window. And I'm going to just let the sky portion overlap into the houses there. It doesn't matter that the mask is sort of fuzzy edged. What our eyes see is contrasts. They see sharp edge contrasts. So if you can do these edits in such a way that they are smooth gradients rather than sharp edge contrasts, the eye won't so naturally see the change. And I've just noticed that that little bit on the top of the boat there is a little over bright, so I'm going to just take that down a touch as well. Right. One of the areas of this image that I typically had trouble with when I was editing it the first time I can remember is this area right here. There's a bright front of the boat and there's a bit of ground here that's got a lot of reflection from the sky. So I'm also going to just back on my darkening layer down here. So I'll drag that in so you can see it. Back on my darkening layer, I'm going to just paint in a little bit of white and just darken that down just a touch, and the front of the boat just a touch. That's one of the areas that I found kept coming up bright when I was working on it last time, so just in anticipation of having to correct that later, I'm just going to fix it now. And also there, just on the side of the boat, I'm getting a little bit bright. And I think that's probably everything for my ground layers. I'm going to leave it there. Oh, just the side of that boat as well there. That's also just a little bit hotter than I'd like. Just take that down a touch. And that's it. That's my ground layer done. There are more edits to come. I've got some final adjustment layers yet to do for the ground, so don't fret that it's still not quite as high contrast as the final version. When we get there you'll see that there's quite a lot of final dodging and burning that gets us to where we what you finally see on the tutorial page. But we're just sort of edging closer and closer to the final image. So I will get on with the next video and you can see how I worked on the sky.
I will be teaching a Lightroom and Photoshop 2-day course in June, the 6th and 7th of June. I will be doing a full day on Lightroom on June the 6th and a full day on Photoshop on June the 7th. You can sign up for one or other or both of the days by visiting the Wellshot website at www.wellshot.co.uk. All of the details and prices are there. It's a very good value course for anybody here in the UK. I definitely recommend it. It's a beautiful, beautiful location. And we'll be having 2 full days of not only teaching, but also you'll get the chance to get your hands on and actually do some editing on these photographs yourself. I hope I will see you there. It looks like a very exciting day. That's June and the 6th and 7th for Lightroom and then Photoshop. Thank you very much for following along with Photo Walkthrough Tutorial 1. Again, this is a re-encoding and I hope you're enjoying the better quality, and those of you that wanted to keep it can download and keep these files. Remember, you can get in contact with the show by emailing me at photowalkthrough@gmail.com, and if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, my username on Twitter is FloydUK, Floyd UK. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you in the next tutorial.
Photocastnetwork.com, your photography resource in the potosphere. Photocastnetwork.com